outset, but you start noticing that there's a lot, they have buddies in cars that are, right outside the entrances. Can you notice that everybody, all three of them have firearms that they're starting to reach for? Can you notice that they're starting to put the clerk on his knees at that point instead of just waiting for him to get money from the cash register? I mean, the way that the situation is unfolding at that point would really determine what I would do in response, because as Mr. Meadows said, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to keep advantage of my position, but I'm not going to watch somebody get shot when, as an armed citizen, I see the situation in time enough to maybe be able to do something to prevent it, but I don't think going in there and just, making a movie quality last stand is going to be doing any good either. So to try to do it smart, to try to take advantage of cover, to take advantage of concealment, to summon law enforcement, and then as the situation unfolds, to do whatever you can to protect yourself and innocent life, those would be my priorities.
Okay. All right, Travis, your go.
All righty, here we go. All right, we had this conversation last week, and after the conversation, I kind of thought about my point of view I had at the time. So the next time I actually went into a gas station, I actually went in there trying to think as I would if I was going to rob the place. And I noticed the first thing I did when I walked in was I looked for other people. How many people were in this store? And I think if someone's going to go in and rob a store, they're not just going to pull up, jump out of the cars, run in there and rob it. They're probably going to sit back somewhere for a minute and wait until there's the least amount of people in there because it's the least amount of opposition. I hate to assume on the fact that I won't be seen, as I tend to kind of stand out. I'm kind of a dick that way, so I just tend to stand out. And if I see myself in that position where I'm seen, the first thing I'm going to do is obviously get out of the line of sight, draw my weapon and phone, go ahead and dial 911, which is speed dial on my iPhone, and just toss it on the floor. So that way any operator can, 1, A, trace the call, and 2, they'll be able to hear the situation in real time as it's happening. And I'm going to do my best to stay out of the line of sight until any further aggressive action is taken by, whoever the individuals are. All right.
Key points that I was trying to make with them just coming in and robbing the place and there being 3 of them. Like I said, it's a high probability of gang violence in the Southeast, or actually anywhere at this point. Generally, if somebody's robbing a store, it's not going to be 3 people armed coming into the store at one time. We've seen it more often now coming up in Savannah that there's gang initiations where you have 3 people coming into the store and their purpose is not to get the money. They have to inflict some type of violence to be initiated into the gang. So,
Carter, this is Dan. I want to interject in that, I agree wholeheartedly with you in respect to that. I worked as a homicide investigator many years ago, and with the gang activity that was taking place then, a lot of the initiation was that they didn't care to rob places and stuff like that. They were there for the violence, so shoot people. I remember one case I worked. Man was out. It was for gang initiation. Man was out walking his dog in one of the parks there in Savannah. They shot him. It was an African American gang. I'm just putting that out. It was an African American gang. It was a white elderly man out walking his dog. They shot not only the man, they shot and killed the dog as well. So, I mean, that absolutely does take place. In response to multiple people coming in, multiple people I've seen all too many times as an officer will come in, they fan out, and a lot of times they'll go at least to the back room or try to get a clerk or manager to the back room to go into the safe to get more money if it is accessible, but they also will try to yank the video cameras or whatever, disable them. If it's a CD type system or something like that, disable it and take that along with them. So exactly what you're saying right now, sir. I couldn't agree with you more.
So, but when in that mindset with the scenario, and you see there's three guys, they didn't come in and they're not searching for more people because they don't care if there's more people there. Mm-hmm. Their goal is to get in, do violence to the clerk, get some money if they can, and then get out of there. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, you still have to, stay out of sight, cover, conceal, dial 911, but you have to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead as well. So I'm in agreement with everybody, but I'm just kind of throwing out there's more to it than just the robbery. So, and it's something that somebody needs to have in the back of their mind that these guys, there's 3 of them, they're probably not here just to rob the store.
So you really want...
I'm sorry, go ahead, Natalie, please.
I was going to say, the question really revolves, the situation really revolves in a large part around the assumption behind the scenario that you're fairly certain, if you're in that situation, that you're witnessing a situation in which violence is highly likely to be committed, and it's not... You're not so hesitant as to what is going to happen. The question is more, you know almost positively what's going to happen, and so what do you do? Do you do anything preemptively?
Exactly.
Would that be a way to think about it? Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Or do you take preemptive action?
Here's the problem. You can never really take preemptive action, because us as armed citizens always have to be in a reactive state, because something has to happen to allow us to pull the trigger on another human being.
Well, and that's exactly the double bind of this scenario, because you're setting up a scenario in which presumably the person there knows it's most probably a gang initiation. There's most probably, violence going to be done purposefully. So are you gearing yourself up to try to put a stop to that as soon as it starts, or to prevent it, or what do you do, or do you just witness it? But the question is not that you're not really sure of what on earth is even going on. You want the scenarios where you have a pretty good idea that this is probably a gang initiation of some sort where people are there for the violence.
Yeah.
Okay.
But everything is exactly right. You don't really do anything different, though. Even with the mindset that this is probably a gang initiation, you still can't step forward and, have your heroic action scene, as we're putting it, at all. One, there's 3 people. It doesn't matter how good of a shot you are. I know I carry a 1911. I've got 8 rounds. Yes, I have an extra magazine, but there's 3 people, and they're probably going to start shooting back.
Right.
There's got to be a fine line of where you're going to pick your point that you're going to step in, and where you're just going to, preserve yourself.
So what if we
I don't
take
like putting it that way because I think morally I have the obligation to step in to try to save somebody else's life. But
so what if we take that a step further and say in that scenario they actually are putting the clerk on his knees, or they're putting the gun up to his head, and then what do you do?
For me, that's a no-brainer. I'm try to cause as much damage to the perpetrators as I possibly can without inflicting damage on the clerk.
Exactly, while taking the attention off the clerk.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you're talking about some, pretty rough, hard moral decisions that, each person has to make that decision themselves. What's that line for them? How are they going to come? Are they willing to risk their lives to come to the aid of another person? And that's, that's a gut check for everybody.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that's playing out all over America, though. That's the biggest problem. This isn't just a what if scenario for some people. Some people have already lived through it, and they're kicking themselves in the butt because they know they could have stepped in and done something, but at the same time put themselves at more risk. So.
Yeah, you're right.
It sucks that, Dan knows Savannah. I know Savannah real well. It used to be a relatively safe place to go after dark. It's really not anymore. Unless you're in large numbers and staying on River Street and Bay Street and that area and, the historic area and staying in the light, it's not that safe anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's becoming the streets of many, many cities.
Yeah.
Thank God I live in the middle of nowhere. I tell you, I do not miss the Killeen, Fort Hood area at all.
Oh, neither do I.
I enjoy my little piece of country to where if I know somebody's on my land, then I know what I need to do.
Yes. All right. It looks like we're down to 4 minutes of airtime left, and I'm just going to throw that out there. Mr. Meadows, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk with us and share your knowledge and experience. It's definitely eye-opening, the expert witness stage, the articulation after the shooting. It's not really something I've really thought about. I kind of know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to, put my gun away, call the police. But I never really thought about going farther. Will I need counsel and the diary or journal? I've never thought about that, so definitely something I took away from it. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is Vic. Dan, I really appreciate it too. You've been a phenomenal guest and have certainly given me something to think about, and I'm sure given some food for thought for all of our listeners. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and visit with us.
It's truly a pleasure hearing you speak, Mr. Meadows. This is Natalie Numbers. Just like I said, with the experience you've described and that the co-hosting and experience from everything and everybody you know that you also bring to the table, it's a true pleasure listening to you and being able to take away the insights from what you're offering as your perspective. And thank you.
And this is Travis. I'd like to thank you as well. Definitely gave me food for thought as post-shooting consequences or legalities, something I've never really thought too much about, except for calling the police and going from there. Thank Natalie again for coming back. We had great conversations going last week and look forward to more of those here in the future.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
And yes, Natalie, thanks for coming on. Like I said last week, you're always welcome. Mr. Meadows, you're always welcome to call in anytime you feel like it. And Victor, thank you for not being sick today.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
I really wish my computer hadn't shut down and I could have been there right at the beginning of it, but it is the crutch of life when, you're dealing with electronics. So I'm going to put a shout-out there to A&R Guns and Ammo LLC out of Plano, Texas one more time. And, wow. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, look, Meadows is back on.
Phone actually went out a bit ago. I do appreciate everyone
Mr. Meadows,
for having
back.
me on. Yeah, I'm sorry. I appreciate everyone having me on. It's been a wonderful conversation. By the way, Natalie, my name is Dan, so everyone can call me Dan. It doesn't have to be Mr. Meadows. I'm old enough as it is. So
All right,
I appreciate
Dan.
it. I appreciate it. God bless everyone, and happy 4th of July to everyone here, and stay safe, and hopefully you have me back on your show in the future.
Anytime you want to call in, Dan.